The draft time for your mind, and it's always good to have the information for the nation.
How does this draft match up with Cowboy needs?
Well, looking at 12, it's funny. I think this is a draft where there's top two guys, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and then the next tier of players, I think, is between like 3 and 12. And then I think we go to the third tier after that. So theoretically, if you're the Cowboys, I think you feel comfortable. All right, we're going to get somebody that has a first-round grade, and that's somebody that's going to be on our board.
Let me ask y'all a question. How much better is Travis Hunter over Ted McMillan or Will Johnson? Like, how much would you really put into a player that got the unbelievable skill set to play on both sides? Or would you rather have a player that you know for sure he's going to be a solid DB or he's going to be a solid wide receiver? For Travis Hunter to be only in that class by himself, it's kind of like, hey, I'm not saying that it's bust material, but it's, hey, you got to let that thing process all the way out. Now, I think that he's still a dog, by the way. But I'm just not going to put him in just a tier all by himself, right? It's just my thoughts. I could be 1,000,000% wrong. Let me know in the comments section. Let's listen more.
In that next tier. And, we always talk about need versus just going best player available.
Right,
and
right.
I think the Cowboys are an interesting team for that because they have key needs that need to be addressed. There's only so much they're going to be able to do in free agency that – because in a perfect world, you're addressing every need before you enter the draft. So you can just go to the toy store and pick out what looks fun. Here, it's this year, it's going to be maybe a little bit different if they can't address every single need that they have, especially with these extensions coming down the road and different things they want to do. Or do they find themselves backed into a corner where they need to draft a corner? They need to draft, a pass rusher. I think
whatever they going to do, they don't need to do, right? So the Cowboys, although we got like close to 50 days before the draft kickoff, they need to get these contract situations together. They do. Absolutely. But let's listen.
How free agency plays out will tell us a lot more.
Running back is cool again.
Yeah.
And yesterday, Brian Schottenheimer went through his traits that he wants in that position, and Eric Chiafalo and many others said, why don't you just say Ashton Jeanty? How do you feel about the running back value now? Jeanty, and who did Kuiper mock the other day that left you very disturbed?
Well, I was upset because Ted McMillan was on the board, and Kuiper put Omarion Hampton there from North Carolina, which Omarion Hampton, good player, but I don't know that I would go there at 12.
And he reminds me a lot of, who people thought Javonte Williams was going to be out of North Carolina, went to the Broncos.
Right.
That type of back where he's fast, he's physical, but he also has a lot of the running back specific traits that you want: the vision, the tempo, the balance. He's a good player, but that would be a little bit surprising at 12.
Here's my thoughts on Omarion Hampton. He's going to be nice. It's going to be a situation whereas you will have to say to yourself what team he's going to. In a Cowboys uniform, yes, he'll be nice. Oh, yeah. Caleb will be. I would say Ashton Jeanty will be. The Ohio State boys will be. Scatterboo to a degree will be as well. Not saying that you go get him at the first pick or the second, by the way. Why? Because this system, we got guys that's going to be dedicated to run the ball, as far as from Connor Riley, who's the O-line coach, Clayton Adams, and then, of course, Brian Schotty. He's talking about running the ball. So if they go to a system that focuses on running the ball first, they're going to look good. I really believe that Schotty is going to have this team looking good. And if you have any reservations on that, when we go live, we'll talk more in details of what he said in his presser at the combine of what he's looking for as far as a running back. Catch out of the backfield, running between the splits, A gap, B gap. An aggressive runner that can run through arm tackles. So we ain't talking about no super soft running back, that goes down at the first tip of the contact. So all of these running backs look for power, ladies and gentlemen. Look for aggressions. Look for someone with soft hands that can catch in the backfield for this particular system. Because Shotty did say that. And I like the way he delivered his speech on that of just talking football.
Well, Ashton Jeanty, I know Cowboys fans will probably have fatigue when it comes to Ashton Jeanty and being mocked to the Cowboys, but it makes sense.
Right.
It really does. And
that's fun.
Yeah,
Even if you don't like the running back, I'm not a running back guy. That's
Sure.
a fun pick.
Yeah.
How does he compare to like Gibbs and Bijan? If they were all three in the same class?
That'd be interesting. Gibbs is he's
special,
so electric. And the thing that separates Gibbs from everybody, I think everyone is going to point to the speed,
But before he goes into that analysis, Bijan is just as nice as Gibbs, and one can argue could be nicer. But it goes back to what I said just a few minutes ago. The system that you go to will highlight and heighten said player skill set. Bijan on Detroit and you put Gibbs on Atlanta, we talking about a whole different situation, right? System. Look at that O-line for your mind that Detroit got, right? And I'm not taking the crap on Atlanta, but that's Atlanta Falcons. Or if you take Bijan and put him on the Niners and their philosophy and principle and system and scheme, or to a degree, even to a point, if you pick them up and put them on the Rams. It all depends on which system you go to. Now, I'm not saying that Gibbs is so far ahead of Bijan, but the reason why, Gibbs been on a better team, right, than Bijan, right? And Bijan just as good. So it all depends on which system you go to. Ashton Jeanty, Omarion, Caleb, and a whole gang of these running backs, it depends on which system they go to. That's also going to heighten the value of what they bring to the table, especially when you have the dedications of running the ball and not just out of shotgun and stuff, if you know what I mean, right? So Ashton Jeanty versus a Gibbs or a Bijan Robinson, it's just as good. It's just as good. Now, Gibbs, he do have the bodies on the resume because of the fact he's been on a winning team, and he's been remarkable. The only person that stopped Gibbs in the postseason was the coach, Ben Johnson. You know, the dude was averaging 7.5 yards per tote, and in the second half, he only touched the ball 3 times. That's coach's malpractice stuff going on. So your back is also predicated upon who is going to be calling the plays. That's a major thing. But let's listen to the rest of what he's going to say about Gils, Bijan, etc.
He is so good with the blocking geometry at the line of scrimmage. Like, he's an offensive lineman's best friend because he's not going to run into his own guys. He understands where the angle is. He's phenomenal in that respect. But with Jeanty, I think if you squint, you can see shades of LaDainian Tomlinson. You can. And a big part of that is the way that he catches the ball out of the backfield.
Facts.
That is a key part of what makes Jeanty so special. And yeah, you can point to, all right, did a lot of his...
I got to stop this man right quick. One more time. Dane Bugler. If I was to ask the people right now, would you rather have LaDainian Tomlinson or Adrian Peterson, right? Or Marshall Faulk? You get what I'm saying? Running backs, depending on which system. You know, the Colts Marshall Faulk was cool. He was great, you know. But he is elite when he went to the Rams because of the way they utilized and used him. The Colts would never got rid of, you know, that version of Marshall Faulk from the Rams. But it goes to show you that regardless, and LaDainian Tomlinson is really good, really good. But depending on how you utilize and use him, because he can catch the ball in the backfield, he can throw that ball too, And he run in between the splits, and he was finessed enough. It was like, man, poetry in motion, right? But now you have to say to yourself, who would you rather have, depending on which system they go to. So that's all I want to get at once again. But Adrian Peterson, whoo! Remarkable. But you can't name an offensive line that he had. You can't name the quarterbacks out of Christian Ponder, make you wonder like, oh, Lord. And he never was in the right system, even though he was just running the ball crazy. Right? So it goes all the way to that point. Would you rather have a Chris Johnson or Steve Jackson, So it goes like that, baby. And all running backs got a unique way of flipping the game. And shout out to Chris Johnson. He had the same issues when we started talking about who was the quarterback, what system he was in, and even though he was able to generate 2,000 yards, etc., we get all of that, right? Saquon Barkley always was Saquon Barkley, but now people got a chance to see the fullness of him when he went to the Eagles. Proper system. 2 number 1 wide receivers. You had to pick your poison. Do you load the box or do you give them light box action? Do you try to win it by shutting down Barkley? Or do you try to win it by making sure that you have to control the wide receivers? Pick your poison type of attitude. You got to be able to spill that out there for people to understand that, hey, when that water is spilled, it's going to go to the lower surface level. It always leverages itself out, and that's what you want your running backs to run with. Smoothness of like water. But let's listen to more. Woo!
Damage against Mountain West competition, and all that. But you watch the Oregon tape, even against Penn State. I know like the numbers weren't great, but tell me what yards he didn't get that he should have on that tape. It's his built low to the ground really helps him with the balance, the ability to break tackles. The contact balance is absurd. Yeah. So I think if he's there at 12, it makes perfect sense for this team.
When you say
perfect sense,
they were against Mountain West teams, he also had Mountain West offensive linemen.
No, exactly. It's all relative.
It's all relative, right?
Relative, exactly. Yeah.
And so he had to create his own yardage consistently, and I haven't done a deep dive on those guys up front, but there's not a single one of them that's getting drafted this year, the Boise State offensive line.
Right.
So, 100%. And it's not like, the quarterback's fine, but it's not like they had an explosive passing game.
Right.
So, teams knew what the offense wanted to do, and they still couldn't stop them. And, you want to see everything you want to see from a running back is on that Boise State tape. And so, if it would not be surprising if he ends up being a Cowboy, and, you can – the Boise State connections, the running back connection, it makes a lot of sense.
No doubt. All of that makes plenty of sense. And Genty will bring us plenty. And I love the fact and the ideology that a lot of people would think, hey, man, we can get any back. But it goes into the system, the dedication, and the skill set of said player. You just can't plug any running back to think that you're going to get the results. Sometimes your system will help you out, but you still need that dynamic guy. Just like he was saying, the running back helped the offensive line out, right? And how can you continue to get yards after you've been contacted? Those are all things that plays majorly, not minorly, with this particular situation. Cowboys. We got holes in every single position. At wide receiver, tight end, you can have reservations. O-line for your mind. Not everybody is going to be sealed tight right there. Running back room right now is Deuce Vaughn and Hunter Lupke, right? On the defensive side, Bland is your only DB. My guy, Trayvon Diggs, he's going to have to go through his rehab and continue to get better, bone-to-bone action. That's bad on the knees. Hopefully in another, 8 months from here, he'll be ready to go. That's a long time, right? In the linebacker room, we raise the blade thin there, right? All we got is Mears Learfowl. Shout out to my guy Overshown, but he's fighting to get back, right? And I've seen him working out with his rehab. That's great, but we got a hole there. Defensive edge room. Do you pay D-Law? They are working out a contract with him. They don't want to go into this season with the second year of Marshawn Nealon because you can still have those sophomore slumps. My guy Sam Williams, we still don't know who he is. Marshawn Nealon done literally almost had more reps than Sam Williams. Sam Williams literally in his career have nearly 600 snaps at playing on edge. That's not a lot, y'all. And out of those 600 snaps, 8 sacks. Do the numbers, right? The Cowboys kind of sully that, but hopefully the brother can get out there on the field and we can finally see who the hell is Sam Williams. To me, if you get 8 sacks out of 600 snaps, that's a lot. That's leaning, if he played complete seasons, double-digit sack guy, if you just do the numbers, right? We already know who Parsons is, but we still have holes in the interior side of the defense because all you have is a potential, possibly, that was leaked, Osa being signed, and Mozzie going into his 3rd season, who most people said, man, the brother can't bust through a wet paper bag, man. We need to draft interior big boys, safeties. Oh, my goodness. We are old and long in the tooth with Hooker, you know. So we got to, and that's Malik Hooker, by the way. We ain't talking about Harry Hines, you know. But when we look at all of that, yes, we got holes everywhere. But one room I know for sure, you can erase most of that hole within this draft is your running back room. If we got 10 draft picks, and if you're talking about utilizing and using your running backs heavily, double dip at that spot and still look in free agency and also bring in a dog, there's an undrafted guy to compete. And shout out to Nate Pete if he's still somewhere competing for a role, because I think he got a little something in him too. So all of this stuff, what our draft needs versus wants, versus scheme versus system and philosophy, just make sure that we get the right pieces to fit what we're going to do the most. And if we're dedicated to running the ball, then we need to see that sound of them drafting running backs in this draft early and not late. With my button there, here we go. That's been my time. I really thank you all for yours. And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. Go Cowboys. Let's get it. DC for life, not for short. Oh, and also, I just want to say this right quick. You know, as a measure, good measure, who is the new wide receiver university? You got, of course, Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, Texas. Texas, Isaiah Bond, he talking about he finna run a 4.2 something. We finna find out. But who's the new wide receiver university? And honorable mention USC and Ole Miss too, by the way. I'm just trying to put this out there because if we drafting wide receivers, not saying that you got to do it in the first, but if you're in the second round and you're looking for a wide receiver to get down, if we don't do nothing in the free agency, let's figure out who we going to go grab. DC for life, not for short. That's been my time. I really thank you all for yours. Salute.